Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Running Our Race. Today's episode is titled Faith. What inspired this episode is that, at least the day I'm recording this, about 8 years ago, I released a song called Faith. It talks a lot about, it's very repetitive chorus that just goes, I got faith, I got faith, I got faith. But I also say, I got faith in a bag. That's how I start out the verse. I remember when I made that song, not necessarily having the most amount of faith, but I remember wanting to have enough that was more than a mustard seed so that I could always carry it with me everywhere I went and that I wouldn't be ashamed of basically what God was doing in my life at that moment. And so I rely on my notes today because I want to get this done in a timely manner, but I also have a lot that I got put in my heart. Just thinking about this song's release, I thought about how my faith wavering has affected my race as a whole. So I mentioned at the time, my faith maybe wasn't at its peak or what it should have been for maybe the amount of time that I was considered a Christian. But I think we all go through, down peaks and high peaks. I started reflecting, and so I want to encourage you to reflect as well. I also saw how it has been helpful in pushing me to go further. So, like I mentioned, that song, I made it because it was with the intention of basically prophesying over my life. And there's a verse that I'm going to touch on later. Habakkuk 2, verse 2-4. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Behold, this soul is puffed up. It is not right within him. But the righteous shall live by his faith. Here, obviously, the last word is faith. It talks a lot about the end. It talks about running. Like I said, this song wasn't about how high my faith was at that moment. It was a prophetic thing. My bag will be full of faith. So much so that I can share it with others. That was the message of this song. It was to inspire others. When my bag is filled with faith, I wanted to share it with others so that others could also have faith. I just want to touch on the story real quick. I'm not going to say the verse, but it was Peter walking on water. That step of faith that he took out of that boat. But it was also me telling God, I don't want to just walk on water. I want to be able to make it all the way to you. That's part of what running our races is, us running all the way to the finish line and actually making it. So our faith, in order for us to make it to the end, we actually have to keep running and running and running until we see him, until we are with him. And that's really what this is. When I think about that story in the Bible, I also am reminded about the mustard seed of faith. I feel like that parable also has a big influence on why I made the song. And for this one, I am going to read the verse, and it says, the apostle said to the Lord, increase our faith. And the Lord said, if you had faith like a grain of mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. To me, that is just amazing. Every time I've came across this verse, it's normally when I have a mustard seed of faith, and a lot of times I end up beating myself up over it, and I'm like, yo, that's just a mustard seed of faith. Like, I need more. Increase my faith. But God says that in reality, there are moments where you're only going to have that. But if you have faith, which is the important thing isn't necessarily how much you have, but it's about having it and not losing it, not letting it go. Because when you let it go, that's when things start going bad. But if you have at least a little bit of faith, you can still keep going and running your race. As we continue running our race, obviously it's going to grow because we continue to learn, we continue to persevere, and as time goes on, we learn how to grow our faith. And of course, there'll be moments, low moments, but like I said before, the moments prior where you've seen God take you out of things is also what's going to increase your faith, because you realize, oh, God is with me. He took me out of that situation. He's going to take me out of this situation. You start prophesying over your own life, and you don't necessarily need as much help from other people. Obviously, you still go to people if you need help, but you won't need as much help. Like, you won't rely on them as much. Maybe you'll read your Bible more, you'll pray more, and then after that, you're like, wait, I still haven't found the solution to this problem. Maybe I should ask for help. Another thing in the Bible that caught my attention, which actually this verse I was reminded of at camp this weekend. Wonderful time. Maybe I wasn't able to physically do a lot of things I wanted to do, but spiritually I felt like my soul really received a lot of we can say confirmations about things, and I really felt like God spoke to me the entire time. There wasn't a single preaching where God didn't talk to me. So y'all see, I think I'm gonna drop a little 3 videos from that thing, but you wanna check it out. I do go into a little bit of spiritual in 2 of them. I know I ask more spiritual questions, and like they're a little more spiritually based, and the other one's just a random catalog. But going back to it, one of the pastors touched this verse. Well, there's been 3 health issues in the past that I have been dealing with. Every time I would get discouraged about it, I would come across this verse. This is Luke 8:48, and it says, "And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace.'" What I took from it when I heard this verse again was, you have to keep believing that healing is gonna come. Just stay in peace. Keep searching for God, doing the right things, keep running your race, and eventually that thing is gonna happen, and you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, hey, it happened. Not at the timing that you want, which is another thing that God has really been speaking to me, but it's gonna happen. This video's getting really long, but I still have a few more verses I want to touch. But I'm gonna try to go a little faster again. The verse is Hebrews 11:6, "And without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him." Which ties into what I was just saying. So I'm gonna just read that and keep it pushing. But the next verse, which is really what was the main thing that inspired, to me, the armor of God has been something that I've always known that I'm supposed to pray to put it over me. But there have been times where I will admit on camera, sometimes I forget to pray over this. It's Ephesians 6:16 is the one that talks about faith. And it's, "In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one." Now, here it refers to a shield of faith. And in my brain, I remember 8 years ago when I was writing this song, I said, take up the shield of faith. And I wanted to make a song about faith. I remember thinking to myself, okay, shield. People aren't physically walking around with shields anymore. Maybe in the Bible times they were, because there were soldiers and there was things. But physically, we're not walking around with shields. A lot of times, especially as women normally, they walk around with a bag. They walk around with something. Men, maybe they'll walk around with a pouch, or they'll walk around with a wallet. You know, like some sort of thing where you can hold your things. One of the things in your bag should be faith. And it was kind of like that connection moment to me. But a while back, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago, I had just met this person, and they came across this song, and they bring it up all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I got faith in the bag," and it's a couple, and they one day they asked me, and they were like, "So what is the biblical meaning behind the song? Like is it David?" And I was like, at first I looked at him and I was like, no, it's about the armor of God. But then I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, I was like, David had a pouch with him. I went back last night and I was reading 1 Samuel 17:38-41, and it says, "Then Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. And David strapped his sword over his armor, and he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. So David put them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him." Now, I took 2 things from this, and it was that one of the things that he had was a shield, but he replaced it with a pouch. I never caught that before. Because I remember reading this when the friend made the connection, but I didn't really capture that essence of it. But when I really think about it, David is really connected to this, and David has a lot of faith in a lot of parts of his life. I want to end off with 1 Samuel 17:45-47, and then I'm going to skip to 49. And it says, "Then David said to the Philistine, 'You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the hosts of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves, not with a sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand.' And David put his hand in his bag, and he took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. Stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground." When I read this specific part, it was like if that stone was his faith, and he still had because he had grabbed a total of 5 stones. So it was like if he grabbed one part of his faith and slung it at the guy, and the guy fell because he had faith, and he had it in his pouch, he had it in his bag. And to me, that was just amazing. Who got him that victory was God, but it was also his faith in God. He said it, he kept giving him the glory, even though he hadn't won the battle before. That is faith. And that's what I want to end off with today. I know this episode is probably longer than what I normally do. I just want to encourage y'all today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.